Good evening, everybody. We are back Thursday night. It's a Safety and a Sportswriter with Knoxville, Nate, and Big Joe as we get ready to talk to you about the world of sports. And we're really going to talk about the world of sports tonight because we're even going to do some baseball and basketball along with our football and our football picks and everything else we usually do. Our top 10 picks, our top 10 teams, our bottom three, our picks of the week, and our players of the week. So we got that to get to. But before we get there, Nate, first of all, how are you doing? And secondly, I've got some big news to tell you.
I am good. I'm very intrigued to hear what this big news is all about.
Not sure if you're aware, I saw it yesterday on newsfeed, something that I found, well, I don't want to say shocking, but well, we'll just break to it. Blake Bortles retired.
Yes.
I was shocked to think that he thought he was still playing.
Yes, that was interesting, and I also was very shocked that they reported that.
Thank you.
Who was interested to hear such news? And as you said, did he really retire, or did he really
He got cut?
Get cut like 3 years ago? Because I'm pretty sure he got cut 3 years ago. I remember the Packers. When I think was it the Packers? Somebody brought him in last year for like a week, and quickly discarded him out of town. So
I just found it so funny that he had to announce his retirement. I was just like, really?
Yeah, we already knew, bud. You didn't have to tell us about it.
But anyways, we have a lot to get to tonight. Like I said, week 4, we got 4 in the books. We got, I know with my top 10, I got, it was really hard to look at because there's some games that were losses, but does that take away from the team? I don't know. But, it's really a lot of parity this year. A lot of parity.
There's a lot of teams that are 2-2, in case you haven't noticed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's kind of what makes the finding the team of strength a little bit harder to figure out, because who's really a legitimate contender at 2-2, or who's just hanging around there waiting for the real season to start? Because as I was listening on Sports Talk Radio, and you and I talked about it, how September really has become an extended preseason, and it's really hard to tell if we've seen the real teams yet.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, 4 games was honestly a pretty decent sample size, because we had 4 preseason games.
Yeah.
Usually teams, would play their starters maybe a series in the first game, maybe a 2 or 3 series, maybe a little bit more in the second game, and then the third game they would use kind of as a dress rehearsal.
Right.
Play at least the first half, sometimes start the second half, and get a good look at get a good flow for their team, get a good look at their guys, and then game 4 they'd sit everybody and finish out the bottom of their roster. No one does that anymore. I mean, most teams don't even play their guys at all in preseason. If they do play them, it's certainly not an entire half, or a group of plays across a group of games. I mean, they only have 3 games now, correct? And right. Most of them, a lot of teams don't play their guys at all. So I get it. I understand it. But it does make it a little bit harder to see these. I mean, I'm really confused as to whether the Rams suck this bad, or if it's just because Stafford didn't practice all off season. Like that's one of the teams to me that is probably the most intriguing right now is the the LA Rams. This is last year's Super Bowl team. Is this going to be a Super Bowl hangover? Are they going to really fall off this year and struggle, or do they get things going like they did last year and have a good run at the end? I think time will tell, but I can tell you for certain already that the Allen Robinson pickup is not working out. This guy, has anyone seen him? I mean, we need to put an APB out on Allen Robinson because they paid him some pretty decent money, and I've yet to see him do anything on the field.
The only thing I can say about that move in this defense is it makes the Kenny Galladay move look not as bad.
It does. They both look bad.
Yeah.
Both moves, these guys have been extremely unproductive. But the point you just made is the Galladay move is way worse because he got tons more money and had tons more production more recently. I mean, I think you have to go back to like 2018 or before the last time that Allen Robinson had 1,000 yards in a season, but Galladay was always productive when he was at the Lions. I mean, it was just like a production machine, and now it comes back to, was that just because of Matt
They had a lot of
Stafford?
garbage time too.
And they, like you said, they didn't have many games that really mattered. Yeah, the last time, let's see, the last time Allen Robinson had 1,000 yards was 2020. Last year in 2021, he had 400 yards. And this year so far, he has 9 catches for 95 yards. So not what they're looking for, but I don't know if that's just a product of the offense and him not getting acclimated, or if he is, he's just dropping off. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, he's had some injuries, if I remember right, too. So I mean, it's not like he has some miles on those legs. So you never know. Sometimes these wide receivers go fast. So it'll be interesting to see. And the other thing that we were talking about preseason not being anything anymore, with a lot of these teams, a lot of them, like the Giants especially, the Jets especially, rework their offensive line so many times, and these guys got to get a continuity together. And I mean, you look at Cincinnati, who we praised for going out and reworking their offensive line, and the first 2 games it looked almost worse than their offensive line last year. So that continuity, I think, it takes time to get together and get these guys on the same page. So we'll see. I mean, I think this old line they use about if you start 0-2, your chances of making a Super Bowl are like minuscule. But I think that's going to change with the way things are done now, because I think a lot of 0-2 teams are going to have shots once they get their crap together.
Well, yeah, that and the fact you got 17 games now, so you're playing an additional game, and there's an additional playoff team. So those old percentages of not making the playoffs are completely moot points at this particular juncture, because they play an additional game and there's an additional playoff team. So those numbers are going to change.
Yeah. So let's start out with a little baseball. We don't really talk baseball on this, but we had Aaron Judge set the quote unquote legitimate home run record. Most people are saying, I got to be right up front with it. I don't like the Yankees. I always hated the Yankees because I live in this area and I'm a Met fan. I do like Aaron Judge as a person and as an athlete. I think he's done everything right, and I'm happy he got the record. I don't know. All these people, worrying about it. I don't know. I really let's get your perspective on it first.
Well, I had a buddy who's a big Red Sox fan, and he had a social media post, and he posted a kind of a funny quote. I'm going to read it. He said, in quotes, "We interrupt this program to present this teal-colored 6th-place ribbon to Aaron Judge for this accomplishment, which has been achieved 5 other times in the past 25 years." So, I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, it is the AL
It is record.
And,
it's a legitimate record.
And he took down, the Yankees record, which is a big deal because they've had some of the greatest home run hitters of all time. So I think it is significant. However, these people that just act like those years didn't happen, the people that act like, Barry Bonds only hit home runs because he may or may not have used or that he may have used steroids, and that was the only reason that he hit home runs, or that was the only reason that he hit a bunch of home runs. Those people annoy the crap out of me. The games happened. He hit, as they interviewed Dusty Baker yesterday and asked him about it. And he said, well, I can tell you from a person who was there and was managing the San Francisco Giants at the time, every one of those 73 balls went over the fence. So, it occurred. I mean, whether you like Barry Bonds or not, and that's what I think makes it so polarizing, and why so many people have this strong opinion against Barry, is there's so many people that don't like Barry for whatever reason. The media hated him. He hated the media. He kind of came off as brash. He came off as, somebody who just was kind of a jerk.
Barry Bonds had an axe to grind from way back because he didn't like how the media treated his father.
Yeah, that too.
And there was in how baseball treated his father. I remember watching his father play, and his father was a great player. He only lasted 1 year with the Yankees, but his career out in California before he got here and when he left, the guy was a five-tool player beyond reproach. I mean, he could do anything on the baseball field, and his son could do it too. The thing about it is Barry's not not a nice guy.
Yeah.
Same thing. Mark McGuire's not a nice guy. Big Pappy, nice guy. That's why everybody overlooks it.
That's my exact point. That Big Pappy's allowed. He's in the Hall of Fame. Let me tell you who failed a drug test administered by Major League Baseball. Not Barry Bonds, but Big Pappy. But no one cares about Big Pappy because everybody loves him.
Well, that's just like, Kurt Schilling was out in the papers. He's been vocal lately about a lot of crap. And I'm like sitting there, and the first thing I was thinking about Kurt Schilling is, okay, Kurt, you're against these guys that did steroids. Are you going to give up all the wins you got with Ramirez and Pappy in your lineup hitting home runs for you?
Yeah, and
are you going to give up those wins? Those wins aren't legitimate now, right?
Yeah, the World Series that he won with some of those guys on his team. I mean, and all these.
They wouldn't have made the World Series without Big Pappy.
Exactly, that's my point. And so you can't pick and choose who you're going to include in the history of baseball. You can't pick and choose who you're just going to put an asterisk by because you don't like them. It happened. It was part of the game. Barry Bonds never did anything wrong according to baseball's rules. Steroids weren't illegal. He never failed a test once they were legal. He didn't do anything wrong. I mean, if you're going to start holding people accountable, how about the Houston Astros who were caught cheating to win their World Series? Yet they get to keep their rings.
Well, supposedly there is a memo that hasn't been released to the press that the Yankees were doing the exact same thing.
Right. That's my point. Those are actually breaking rules. Those are actually, instances where teams or players were doing things against the rules to help themselves win. But Barry Bonds was following the rules. He was doing everything he was supposed to do. Baseball wanted these guys to take roids, whether they were taking them or not. All that baseball wanted was this home run thing to keep happening. And then later on, they want to, excommunicate these guys and have nothing to do with them. And that's not the way it works. You can't do that.
Well, and not just to pick on the Yankees about it, but I'm going to pick on the Yankees about it here. They got Giambi. I mean, if you ever saw the pictures of Jason Giambi when he first came up compared to his MVP seasons out in Oakland, I mean, you knew something was going on. And don't tell me Brian Cashman and Joe Torre didn't know something was going on. Same thing with A-Rod. He went from a stick to a guy that looked like he could play tight end in the NFL. I mean, and you look at the guys like Giambi had to apologize. A-Rod suspended for a year. Robinson Cano, where did he get his knowledge from? Probably from A-Rod playing with him. Melky Cabrera suspended. Robinson Cano suspended. Francisco Miceli or whatever, their catcher was suspended. All these guys came through the Yankee dugout when A-Rod was there and went on to be suspended and caught after it was illegal. So I mean, they were still trying. They're still getting people getting suspended today.
Oh yeah, Fernando Tatis just got suspended this year. So you can't act like these were the only, like Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, and Barry Bonds were the only ones that ever took steroids.
And it's fixed.
Yeah, and now no one does it, and now it's no longer a part of the game. I mean, dudes back in the 50s and the 40s were taking speed and, doing stuff. I mean, there's always going to be people pushing the envelope, but the point is that it happened. He hit 73 home runs. I watched it with my eyes. He's the home run king. He holds the records. He did it under the rules of baseball and will forever have done it. So you can't just, because you don't like him, pretend like it didn't happen. And I don't like that.
And I mean, the other thing you think about is, okay, they get mad at this kind of stuff, but they don't mind numbing an injury so a guy can get on the field. Which is more dangerous? I don't know, but I know if you have something that's numb and you're not feeling it, but you're injured, chances are you're going to get injured even worse.
Well, yeah, not only that, but there's supplements all the time that come out, and they're supplements, so they're not regulated by the FDA. These guys take them, they use them. It helps their performance, it helps their recovery, and then a year or two later, the FDA gets a hold of these things and they find that they're dangerous, or they find that they're given an unfair advantage, and then they're ruled illegal, and then the guys don't take them anymore. That happens all the time, every year with different stuff that comes out. So, what some guys taking here and what some guys taking later, who knows? But I don't think you can just pretend like, what happened with Barry Bonds it didn't happen, and just point the finger at him like he's the devil. I mean, that's my favorite too. People act like he's the worst guy in the world and he's this just horrible person. And, meanwhile, none of these other people are perfect either. It really pisses me off, honestly.
I mean, Barry Bonds was going to the Hall of Fame no matter what. If he never took steroids, he was that type of player.
Right.
He was just that good at it. I don't know if McGuire's not in the Hall of Fame, but I mean, I don't know if he was there. He was a one-trick pony. He was a big power hitter when he first came up. Big guy. Yep. Maybe he was skinny, but he could hit the home run. Yeah. Sammy Sosa, kind of a good all-star type player. I don't know if he'd be a Hall of Famer, but Barry Bonds, there's no question he's a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's that guy. That's just a ridiculous thing. I mean, I can see Pete Rose being kept out because he broke a rule.
Yeah. He did something that was against the rules of baseball.
And he knew it.
And he got caught doing it. And they figured out that he did do it. So, he deserves what he gets, just like the Astros deserve to have their championship removed. They cheated, and yet no one cares. So I don't get that. And I don't know if you've ever seen the 30 for 30 about the McGuire Sosa home run race. You ever watched that?
Yeah.
It's just, to me, the love that everyone had for Sammy Sosa, at that time, the people of Chicago, everywhere they went, to all the different ballparks, people cheered for those guys. And now everybody hates those guys. And I'm just like, how did we get from that to where we are now? I don't know.
Because baseball strikes because of what Donald Fear and Gene Orza and the Baseball Players Association did to the game. And people were looking for a reason to cheer for the game again after they kind of the players gave their collective finger to the fans saying, we don't care. We just want about our money, which I guess, is what they should be concerned about. But the fact of the matter is, I know for me, that turned me off from baseball when they're getting strikes every other year and Donald Fear and Gene Orza were in the paper. And I'm like sitting there going, they're still making more than me. I mean, what should I be concerned about with there? And I'm the one paying the damn money for them to play. So I mean, it is what it is. We don't want to go down that road right now. But like you said, people should recognize Aaron Judge's achievement as the AL record holder. God bless him. He bet on himself, and he came. Somebody's going to be paying him astronomical amounts of money if you want to talk about that. I mean, he's a great example of Lamar Jackson, what you can do when you bet on yourself if you get it done.
Yeah, that's another another topic for another day, I guess. But the Yankees are using this for all the publicity they can right now. But do they even sign Judge after this? My guess is no. We'll see. But I'm betting that one of these other teams is going to just try and outpace even the Yankees paying for him. My guess is it'll probably be on the Dodgers because that's where everybody gets paid.
If the Yankees don't win the World Series, I think they have to sign him.
Yeah.
Because their fan base will be so pedoed that if they let him get away. I mean, if you think about it, if you've been watching, because I've been watching a lot of baseball this summer because of the Mets being successful. The Yankees have basically sucked for the most part since the All-Star break.
Yeah.
July and August, they were playing pretty much as bad as the Pittsburgh Pirates. And what covered them was the fact that he had such a lead, and Toronto, the schedule favored them because Toronto and Tampa Bay had to beat up on each other to try and catch them, and they played to kind of a veritable stalemate. And so neither of them could pick up enough games to catch the Yankees. But I mean, Garrett Cole, they're talking about him breaking his strikeout record. He won 14 games. The guy doesn't pitch past the sixth inning, and he makes more money than anybody but Scherzer on the mound. Never won a Cy Young. He's won 20, I think, twice in his career. And, I mean, when he was in Houston, he was behind Verlander on their depth chart. But this guy is, and then I just wish he'd shut up because he's a sixth inning pitcher that just cries about everything and gives up a lot of home runs. So I think what Aaron Judge did for the Yankees, like you said, gave them a positive spin on the back pages of the newspaper all throughout the fall, sold tickets for them, and when the Yankee fans were upset with them in August, they forgot about it while rooting for Judge to break the record.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think they have to pay him. I mean, I don't understand how someone can do this and have the type of season that he's had. I mean, it's not. That's the thing that I really do like about Aaron Judge, and I do like him. I mean, he seems like a really nice guy, and he's a hell of a baseball player. This wasn't a McGuire year where all he did was hit home runs and he batted .230. He's had great numbers across the board, and he's been raking it all year long. Even at times when the rest of the Yankees bats went cold, Judge has continued to get on base. He's continued to knock himself in if he had to, but I've been very impressed with the way that he's played, and if anyone deserves to get paid, it's him. I'd much rather pay him $44 million a year than Mike Trout, who plays in 25 games a year.
Yeah. So, and then we got you brought this up to me on the phone before. We got Draymond Green. Has he become too much of an irritant to keep on the team in Golden State? But who do you get to replace him if he's not there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that Draymond, for all of his faults, he is one of the main reasons that the Warriors have won all these titles. He's been the one guy that kind of keeps this team together. He's the guy that does the dirty work.
Yeah.
He is I hate to sound like I'm overstating him as a player because I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm stating his importance to the Warriors. He is so important to them. They can't really get rid of him. I mean, I think at this point, if they're going to win another title, he's got to be on this team. He's the defender. He's actually their point guard. I don't know if you've ever watched them play, but 80% of the time, he's the one that brings the ball up and gets them in their offense. So they have to have him out there, but this is just Draymond being Draymond. And this is kind of the stuff he does, which, at this point, you'd think he'd be a little bit more mature considering his age. But this is just him acting like he always acts and acting like an idiot half the time and punching some guy in the face. Back in the Jordan days, you could get away with this. Jordan could punch Steve Kerr in the face, and we wouldn't hear about it for 3 months because it's not there's not a video of it and it's not on Twitter. But you can't do this stuff anymore without it becoming a big time story and getting talked about till the cows.
I was about to say that that Steve Kerr is probably the coach who knows how to deal with this the best because of what he went through with Jordan. The fact that he's been through a situation like this with a star. He was like Jordan Poole. He was just another guy on the team, and the star punched him. Where do you go with it? I think it's the one thing too is like, do we make too much out of this? I mean, you and I grew up playing sports either on the street or organized or whatever. But I remember playing 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 games in my backyard or my friend's backyard, and someone threw an elbow and you got into it a little bit. I mean, it happens. It does happen. I mean, who among us hasn't drawn the blood from a friend's nose with a punch or something?
Well, yeah, it does happen, but usually it's when you're playing against somebody. You don't usually punch your guy on your team in the face. You usually fight with your opponent. So that's, I think, what makes it kind of a big deal. But the thing that I think the reason that people are talking about it, and I think the reason that it is kind of a big deal, is Jordan Poole isn't just a guy anymore. I mean, he is a huge piece of that team. I mean, the guy averaged 20 points a game last year and over 4 assists. I mean, he was huge for this team and a big reason why they were able to win the title again. Steph, Clay, Draymond, they're all a little bit older, but this guy is the young guy who just has energy galore. and was unbelievable throughout the playoffs last year and towards the end of the season. So they're going to have to figure out a way to get all these guys back on the same page if they want to make another run at it.
Yeah, like I said, I have confidence Steve Kerr. He's been through it himself personally. I think he can figure it out and get them on the same page and go on from there. Because like you said, Draymond Green's skill set is hard to replace. I mean, he kind of brings to the table, not in a freaky way, the way like Rodman used to. He's kind of plays that kind of a game. So
yeah, there's no doubt. But yeah, I mean, Steve Kerr, love him or hate the guy, he has been pretty impressive with this run with the Warriors. I mean, he is there. There's been some ups and downs. There's been some injuries. That was very impressive. I'm not a Warriors fan by any stretch, but I have to give them credit coming back after having, Clay go down with the injury, having the year where Steph was pretty much gone for the whole year, and coming back and being able to, repeat the success that they had previously, even though they're all a little bit older. Several of them coming off big time injuries. To get back to where they were, I thought was extremely impressive, especially with some of these other teams coming up and getting better.
Yeah, you would think they would go the way the Lakers went, but they were able to hang on to it. So, all right, let's get into a little football now. The big story of the weekend was, of course, Tua and his injury. I know I watched it that night. I'm sure you did too. It was very scary, kind of. I don't really know if you remember when Steve Young went down with that concussion and they got in on his face and you could tell he didn't know where he was. That was the second closest. When you saw his fingers go like that and you were like, what is going on? You knew something was going on. They were on, everybody's yelling now about Sunday against the Bills. And he did look like he was concussed that day. There's no two ways about it. A doctor has been fired. But this is one of these things that goes on. Chris Canty was on, I think Monday he came on, or Friday after the injury, I should say, and he came on and said how some of these players play with the tests. They sit there and they're with the baseline for these neurological tests, they fail on purpose. So when they are concussed or dinged up a little bit, they don't look so bad. I don't know how prevalent that is within the NFL, but when you look at this injury, what was your take on it?
I got to be honest. I'm an old school guy. I played defense. I love defense. I was drawn, I think, to the sport of football because of the physicality of it. I just loved how it was a game kind of like rugby where you're up against your opponent and you're physical and you try and drive your opponent backwards, and that's the way you win the game. And that's what always drew me to it. But I've got to be honest, on Thursday night, I was horrified. Mm-hmm. I've never seen that before in my life. All the years that I've watched football, over 40 years now, I've watched football at every level, high school, college, pros, arena, whatever. And I've seen guys get injured. I've had concussions myself. I've never seen anyone do that. I know it's happened before. It happened in a Lions game last year, but I didn't see that. And it's never been on national television in prime time like it was. And to me, it really bothered me because of what we saw the previous Sunday. Okay. So we've got all these things in place now that are supposed to protect these guys from themselves, that are supposed to favor the safety of the player over, the glory of the game. And it just seemed to me like it was all for naught because they've rushed everything up to where now you play a game on Sunday and you don't even have time to heal or to recover. You've got to play again on Thursday. And instead of being precautionary and keeping him out, he never should have gone back in the game Sunday, first off. Right. And he did. And it wasn't a good look. And then they start him on Thursday. And that's the whole thing that I said. I said, he should have never gone back in that game. And now he's starting this game. I said, if something happens here, the fire is going to get ignited. And that's exactly what's happened. And it should, because he should have never gone back in the game Sunday. And he shouldn't have been playing on Thursday night. And that was the worst possible outcome that could occur is what happened. And I think it's a really bad look for the team and the league as a whole.
And even if you want to play devil's advocate and say, well, he's their starting quarterback best, you got Teddy Bridgewater on the bench. He's a pretty good quarterback. So, I mean, I know he's a young coach. He's inexperienced and stuff like that. But the Yale grad failed that test there. I mean, there was no reason why Teddy Bridgewater couldn't have been the quarterback in the second half against Buffalo and also against the Bengals. And maybe right now you gotta wonder. I've heard a lot of people saying Tua shouldn't come back at all this year after that kind of an injury. Should take the rest of the year off. I'm sure he doesn't agree with that. But in hindsight, it probably would be good for him to sit out the rest of the year and make sure his head's back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so I can't really speculate on the amount of time that he needs to fully recover. But I can tell you this, they can't put him back out there sooner as opposed to later and have this happen again. Then his career is over, and he may never play again. And the other thing that
Or even worse.
Yeah, or even worse, he could be permanently injured, which is just horrible to even think about. But I just think it's so funny how let's be honest. I mean, call a spade a spade. They put him back in the game because they wanted to win.
Right.
They put him back in the game because it was a close game. They were playing their division opponent. This is the team, the Bills, that they have to get by if they're going to take that next step. That's why Brian Flores was fired. That's why Adam Gase was fired before, because they haven't been able to not only make the playoffs, but get to the later rounds, get to the Super Bowl, win the big game. This is a team that hasn't been able to do that. So in order for them to get where they want to go, they've got to beat the Bills. They've got to win the division. And I felt like that took precedent over this young man's health. And that to me is disgusting.
And now even worse is you want to just look at it flatly. You don't know when you're going to get your starting quarterback back, if at all, this year. And you're in worse shape than you would have been if maybe you sat him out for a couple of weeks. And lost maybe 2 games.
Right. You take him out of that Bills game. Maybe you lose that game, but you take him out. You make sure he's okay. You make sure he passes all the tests. You make sure that his brain is all right. You take precautionary measures. This is your franchise guy. I mean, they don't have another quarterback on that roster that's a young guy as well that can end up being their franchise quarterback. They're all in on Tua at this point. And to just throw him out there to the wolves like that, I think is bad and shouldn't have been done. And like you said, you maybe lose against the Bills. You maybe don't have him for the Bengals game, but then you bring him back the week after, and you've got your starter, in the thick of it for the big run. But now, who knows how long he's going to be? I thought it was funny that they came out on Monday and ruled him out for Sunday. I'm like, oh, now he's out. Oh, now you're announcing that he's definitely not playing on Sunday. It's like, oh, where was this a week ago? Now you're all about sitting him out and putting him on the bench. But a week ago, he's out there playing, getting concussed for the second time in 5 days. So I thought that was a little bit ridiculous as well. But
the other thing is, now anybody who's even borderline now is going to be sitting down for 2 weeks.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's supposed to be, if you don't know, then you don't go. If you're not 100%, you err on the side of caution. If you think, well, this guy might be concussed, he may not, you sit him out and you make sure. You don't just throw him back in the game. That's what all these rules, that's all these protocols, having the independent neurologist on the sideline. All of this is supposed to, change the game and make it so that we are erring on the side of caution and doing things differently. But this just kind of makes it seem like the whole thing is for show, and that the system still is not where it needs to be.
All right, I'm going to throw my team into this fray here. The Giants, the Daboll era, couldn't ask for a better start. 3-1. I mean, coming out of the gate, no Giant coaches got us that kind of a start, or gotten the team to that kind of a start since Tom Coughlin. And he's been successful. Looks like they're on their way. But again, Daniel Jones injured. The thing that might help us, or the general public, forever knowing whether Daniel Jones could be a quarterback, is the fact that he can't stay on the field. So my whole thing right now is, since he can't stay on the field, he's kind of writing his own epitaph with the Giants right now, because you'll never know if he'll be a quarterback in the future. But right now, Saquon Barkley is looking like he did as a rookie. And if he can stay healthy and continue this on, I think the Giants have to re-sign him because you're looking to bring in a new quarterback, and he's really your only real offensive weapon. So I think he's making a case where the Giants are going to have to sign him and hope he turns into a second coming of Frank Gore. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you got to sign him at this point. I mean, who's every team to be supremely successful, you got to have the three-headed monster. You got to have the quarterback, you got to have the running back, you got to have a wideout that can do it. And where are the Giants at right now? They've got one. They got the running back, and I really don't think they have either of the other two. They've kind of hit and missed on receiver after receiver, whether they've drafted them or whether they picked them up by free agency. And I think at this point, the jury's not still out on Daniel Jones. I think the jury's in. I think the verdict's been read. I mean, what do you want from him? He is what he is. I mean, we keep sitting there thinking, oh, we've had this discussion a million times. When is it going to happen? When, maybe this is the year. He's really got to prove it this year. Well, he's had 4 years to prove it, and he hasn't. I'm sorry. I mean, I like him. I think he's a good quarterback, but is he a guy that's just going to put a team on his back and carry them into the latter rounds of the playoffs? No, he's not. He's not that guy.
He's limited.
And he's limited as to what he can do, and he's just not. He's not a top 10 quarterback. I mean, I'm sorry if you're looking for that guy. If you're looking
for top 20.
Okay, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He's just not a top tier guy. And if that's what you're looking for, you need to keep looking. But he's also not very durable either, because he's continued to get banged up, and this is a big year for him, and he's not going to be able to secure a long contract extension from the Giants if he's not even playing.
Especially when right now the best part of his game is his running.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just. Think about it. He's going to get hit when he's effective. He's going to get hit a lot, and he's fragile. I mean, he's glass. So the fact of the matter is, he can't play. I think you got to go out and you have to make some kind of a move for a new quarterback in the offseason and that. And I tell you, everybody talks about running backs not being the longevity of it. There is those weird cases, a couple of weird cases. Frank Gore is one of the biggest one. Had a huge knee injury early in his career, ended up playing, in their 12 years? So it can be done. It has been done. And if it comes down to putting the money in Jones or putting the money in Barkley, I'm putting my money on Barkley.
He's the best player on this team. I mean, anyone can say whatever they want, but he is the best player on this team. And so far, he's got him at 3-1 based on basically his play. Right. It's not like Daniel Jones, even when he was healthy and playing, he wasn't lighting it up and throwing 4 touchdowns a game. I mean, it's been a grind and ground kind of game, with the running back. So I don't know if you saw towards the end of the game last week, Daniel Jones was injured. Tyrod Taylor got knocked out of the game. So they were having Daniel Jones play wide receiver, but they had to have him on the field because he was the only one with the helmet to call the plays into. So they were having him, calling the plays into Jones. He was calling the plays in the huddle, and then Barkley was taking the snaps, and Jones was lined up on the out wide receiver, basically wasting a player on the field. And I haven't seen that before, or at least it's been a long time since I've seen that. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen that, to be honest with you. And it was pretty crazy to think about.
There was a game way back in the 80s. It was the Raiders against the Bears. And in that game, if I remember it right, the quarterbacks on both sides were knocked out. And basically, Walter Payton and Marcus Allen had to take the snaps.
But they didn't have the hurt quarterback out there calling the plays in the huddle.
No, they didn't have that. But
that was pretty crazy.
That was the weirdest thing.
I kept looking for Ronnie Brown.
I think we should get to our top 10 because I want to break down, not individual games, but where we think these teams are at after 4 weeks. What's his name? Zach Wilson came back, and the press around here is like you think he won the Super Bowl from having 1 quarter against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's another situation where, I'm sorry, I just never liked him. I didn't like him I like him as a person, but I'm just saying as a player, I wasn't impressed with him coming out of BYU. I watched him play in person. I saw him play on tape. I watched his highlight package. I watched his, game tape. I just have never seen what these other people are seeing that like this guy. I just don't get it. I'm not a believer in him. I don't get it. I mean, was he horrible on Sunday? No. But if you look at his line, he was still about 50% completion. He was 18 of 36, which is exactly 50%. I'm not a math guy, but I do know that. And then he, turned the ball over twice, throwing 2 interceptions. So, I get it. They won the game. Great. I'm happy that they won the game. But is this like the coming out party for this quarterback? Was he the reason they won? I'm not sure you can say that, but I think this was more a product of the Steelers' inadequacies on offense than it is Zach Wilson leading this team to a win.
Totally agree with you. But the thing around here is that the New York media and the fans of the Jets, there's never been a team that is more desperate for a win or a winning season than the Jets. And their fans just go off the wall about any good result. And it's all of a sudden, it's like, oh, well, we fixed it. No, you didn't. You don't know what you fixed yet.
Hey, when you pick in the top 5 every year, this is 2-2 start. This has got Jets fans salivating. I mean, there's been a number of seasons in the past 10, 15, 25 years where 2 games was all we got for the whole season. So to be at 2-2 right now is pretty amazing for the Jets as a whole and for the Jets based on what they've dealt with quarterback-wise. I mean, hell, we've had Joe Flacco out there for 3 weeks and Zach Wilson out there for another one, and we've won 2 games. That's pretty freaking phenomenal, if you ask me, especially considering the offensive line issues. I mean, that to me is the biggest thing. Mekhi Becton, gone. George Fant, gone. They pick up Dwayne Brown. He's gone on IR. I mean, they're out there with their 4th left tackle. And that to me is more impressive than, anything that Zach Wilson did. The fact that they were able to go out there, and I believe they only gave up 1 sack. I think that's correct, right? I think they only gave up 1 sack. And when you've got your second or 4th left tackle out there, that's pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Especially against the Steelers, who are supposed to be historically a big time, pass rusher team.
Yeah. And that turned out to be the truth right now. And there's a little bit of a mess right now, Pittsburgh. Let's get into our top 10s and let's break down who we think are the good teams right now. And then some teams that maybe can break into the top 10 as we go on into October. I started out my list, number 1, Philly, of course. Right now, Philly didn't look good in the first half, but they came back and showed what they were in the second half, and they're undefeated still. So what did you got to put Philly on top, correct?
I do. This isn't really surprising to me. I know nobody agreed with me, but I thought Jalen Hurts was damn good last year and was completely impressed with him leading the Philadelphia Eagles to the playoffs under the first year of a head coach, who first year he'd ever been a head coach at any level, and also his first year starting. He took them all the way to the playoffs and did what he had to do to get it done. And then as I predicted, I said, this guy wants to be good. He wants to be great. He's going to do what it takes to get better, and that's what he's done. This offense is rolling pretty well. But really the only thing that's surprising to me, because Jalen Hurts isn't surprising me at all, I thought this would happen, and I predicted this to happen, but I did not think this defense would be this good. This defense is dominating. They're getting after the quarterback. The secondary play is phenomenal. I thought the defense would be all right, but I did not intend, or I guess I didn't think that this team would be at this level defensively that they are at this point.
Yeah, and you gotta love the coach. I mean, what he's shown so far, Philly did a good job of picking their head coach, because he's hit the ground running and hasn't looked back.
Yep.
Number 2, I got Kansas City. I know a lot of people. I mean, I heard some of the pundits, the Brady apologists, talking about how great Brady played against them. But he started playing great when they were down by over 20 points, and everybody knows it's easy to pass in garbage time.
He was completely shut down until they started playing prevent defense, and then
right.
they were trying to run the clock out, and he started piling up stats. But he didn't do anything when the game was on the line. They really stifled that offense. I haven't seen a team carve up that defense like that in a long time, and I haven't seen a team shut down that offense like that. And I really think Steve Spagnuolo is doing a really good job thus far with what he has.
And of course, Andy Reid, you had to love that play where he brought the tight end in motion and put him in for the quarterback sneak. I mean, if there's things he sees, possibilities he sees, you got to love him. I mean, everybody used to talk about Mike Martz's play call when he was with the Greatest Show on Turf. I don't think I'm close to the things Andy Reid comes up with. And right now I think I put him just a little bit ahead of the Bills as my number 2 team. Who do you guys number 2?
Yeah, I got Chiefs as number 2. I've had the Chiefs ahead of the Bills just because I like Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Josh Allen's great, but if I have to pick between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes all day long. And that's nothing against Josh Allen.
No.
Not disrespecting him at all, but I'm just saying, one guy's been to the Super Bowl a couple times and has a ring, and the other guy does not. So I like the Chiefs just a little bit more than the Bills at this point, and I have all year.
The other thing about the Bills, and I got them as my number 3, is the fact that they still don't have a real running back they can depend on. So we'll never know if Josh Allen can just sit in the pocket and tear somebody apart. Mahomes can do it.
Well, he's not going to last doing this. I'm sorry. I know he's lasted thus far, and he's been very, very durable, especially considering how much he's had to run the ball. But you can't keep running this guy time and time again, game after game after game, run after run after run, and expect this guy to hold up in a 17-game season. Hell, if you expect him to win the Super Bowl, you got to play 21 games? You're expecting this guy to be your quarterback and your running back for almost a quarter of 100 games? It's not going to happen.
No, not at all. Number 4, I got Green Bay because of their defense more than anything else. I think Green Bay's got a pretty good defense this year. If Aaron Rodgers can be Aaron Rodgers, they're in pretty good shape. But what do you think about them at 4?
I've got them at 4 just kind of out of default. Because I didn't have anyone else to put it for, was really the reason. And I like their ground game, and I like their defense. Their defense is phenomenal. I don't think their defense gets enough credit that they deserve. The back end is solid. I love their linebackers. And then that defensive line, could be one of the best in the league, anchored up there by Kenny Clark, who no one really talks about because, Aaron Donald gets all the acclaim and all the attention, but Kenny Clark is just as important to the Packers as Aaron Donald is to the Rams.
And then I'm my number 5 pick. I'll tell you, 4 of my next 5 picks from Green Bay to number 8 were mostly because of defense. And my next number 5, I gave it to Dallas. I like their defense. Cooper Rush has been doing the job. I don't know how long he can do the job for. I don't know if we'll suddenly see things he can't do. But it hasn't shown up yet. They did beat the Commanders, so you got to put a little bit of on that. But you got to figure if Dak is ready in a week or two, Cooper Rush has done his job.
Yeah, he sure has. And I got to be honest, I did not think that was going to occur. I've seen, I saw Cooper Rush last year in a limited role, and he played very well and impressed, but I just didn't think he'd be able to sustain that, especially with, the different receiving group and the skill players that they've had around. I mean, Amari Cooper's gone. Michael Gallup played this week and actually looked pretty good in his first action of the season, but he didn't play the week before. So he's been kind of doing it with some of the second stringers. Noah Brown, has been really stepping up for them, a guy who's been primarily a special teams player since he got there. I really have been impressed with the way he's played. And this running game has done well. I mean, Cooper Rush, yeah, he's done what he's had to do. He deserves all the credit in the world, but it's made his job a lot easier. The fact that this offensive line has really gelled well, and the rookie has stepped up and played like he's not a rookie. And Tony Pollard and Ezekiel are getting it done, run the football. So that's helped the Cowboys, and that's why I have them at number 5, right behind the Packers, because they've been able to run the ball. Cooper Rush is doing what he needs to do to win, and then that defense is lights out under the defensive coordinator and his scheme.
All right, here's where we might split. This team, I'm going to preface this with saying that they might be on their way down in my list. I still think they're a top 10 team, but I put Tampa Bay at number 6 because of their defense. Even though they got shredded by Kansas City, there's not too many quarterbacks like Mahomes and play callers like Reed that they're going to have to come up against. But that offense worries me, and I got them at 6 just because they're still Tampa Bay. Brady is not the Brady of 4 years ago, not the Brady of 10 years ago, but he's still Tom Brady. So I got them as 6, mostly because of their defense.
Yeah, I've got them at 6 also, just because, I mean, yeah, it didn't look great on Sunday night, but they were playing against the team that I have ranked number 2. So, if you're going to look bad against the Chiefs, it's okay to do it. So I've still got them up there because, like you just said, I like their defense. At the beginning of the year, Leonard Fournette was running the ball well. I'm not sure what's happened since then, but they're going to start getting some of these receivers back. Godwin's going to be back. They're going to get healthier across the board, hopefully, as they move forward. So I like them right there at number 6 as well. But Cole Beasley retired today, so I didn't really understand that. Why the hell did you sign with the Bucks and play in 2 games and then retire if you want to be around your family? Just say no when they call, dummy.
Maybe, Tom's just too hard to take. You know what I mean?
I just think that guy's a crazy psycho. He went off about the vaccine last year or 2 years ago, and now he comes out of retirement, signs with the Buccaneers, plays in 2 games, and then abruptly retires. It's like, what the hell are you doing, dude? You're like one of my ex-girlfriends.
Maybe you need to pay a bill.
Maybe he needs to go see his doctor and get his crazy meds, because he's been a little up and down.
Number 7, I put Cincinnati in here. I brought them up. I liked what I saw from them last week. If this offensive line can start getting better and keeping Joe Burrow upright, Joey B can do the job. So I put Cincinnati in my number 7. I think they're a good team. Their coach is still questionable, but Joe Burrow is one of the top 4 or 5 young quarterbacks in the NFL, if not overall right now. And I'll go with Cincinnati at number 7. Who do you got?
I got the Vikings at number 7. Honestly, if we look at the Vikings season as a whole, if you take away that Eagles game, I think everybody'd be pretty impressed. I mean, they've been close, some of these games. The Lions game, 28-24 is the final. The Saints game is 28-25 as the final goes. But they won those games handily, in my opinion, in the grand scheme of things. And I've liked what I've seen out of them. Justin Jefferson's been tough. Dalvin Cook looks like Dalvin Cook, and Kirk Cousins is, despite the Eagles game, has been getting it done, and his stats have looked pretty good. He's completing over 63% of his passes. He's thrown for 1,000 yards. He's got 6 touchdowns. He's thrown 4 picks. That's not great. But I like Jordan Hicks being added to this defense too. I really think he's a linebacker that's stepped in and really helped this defense substantially. If their corners can hold up, I think this team has got a chance to compete with the Packers.
All right. Next, I got the 49ers. If they could play the Rams every week, Jimmy G would be in Canton. They got the Rams number, so I don't want to go over it. I like their defense. I like the fact that Jimmy G's back in there, giving them a little stability there. I know everybody, he's one of those guys. Unlike Baker Mayfield, at least he wins. that they people love to hate and look for all the things he doesn't do, but he does do some things that help him win. I was listening before we came on. I'm listening to on ESPN someone saying, "Well, he's got to throw the ball more than 20 yards downfield." He doesn't have to do anything except win.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. He does not have to do that. And I like the 49ers right there at 8 also because, that defense is just playing phenomenal right now. I guess I kind of overlooked their defensive line a little bit. Everybody knows about Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is a great player and excellent edge rusher, but I've been really impressed with the other guys on the opposite side of him that I didn't really, know a whole lot. Abucam and also Amina, who say those names 5 times, but those guys have both been just killing it and got after the quarterback. Bosa had 2 sacks last game. The defensive back Lenore, and then that kid, the guy that looks like Palomulu out there from USC, Hufanga. That guy's just everywhere. I don't know if you saw that pick 6 he had, but he's a big hitter, makes plays in the secondary, and also can make those, pick 6 returns for touchdowns. Yeah. I love what they're doing on defense. If they can get some running backs back into the mix, I mean, Jeff Wilson's doing what he can, and they've got Kyle Juszczyk playing some ball. But, if they can get somebody off their injured reserve list to kind of help that backfield, I think the Niners got a chance.
Trey Sermon.
Yeah, he's now carrying the ball and toting it for the Eagles and helping them out, and they could really use him right now because they're missing Tyrion Davis-Price, and they're also missing the boy from Louisiana who's been banged up as well.
And at number 9, I have Minnesota, who we already went over. I agree with all the stuff you say there, but I'm a Minnesota. I got to show me a little bit first, but I got them at 9. Who do you have at 9?
I've got the Ravens at 9. I know they've lost 2 games, but let's be honest, they've been in control of all 4 games. They've I've always been a supporter and a defender of John Harbaugh, but I've got to be honest, these last couple of years, he started to worry me as a coach. There's been a lot of decisions, time, clock management, play calling, decision-making at the end of games that's cost the Ravens. And he needs to be held accountable for that because it hasn't looked good. And I think that if they kick that field goal last week, I think they have a really good chance of beating the Bills, which me and you both have in our top 3. So I got the Ravens right here at number 9.
All right, so I had Minnesota. My number 10, I got a 3-way tie because I didn't know where to go with it. I got the Ravens. I got Tennessee because I've liked them the last 2 weeks. And the Rams, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Man, that offensive line worries me. Stafford's taking a lot of hits, a lot of punishing hits. And they can't seem to get that offense gelling right now and running, or the running game at least. So I got the 3 teams are proven playoff teams. So I think at least 1 or 2 of these guys is going to be in my top 10 before the end of the year. But I don't know which ones it's going to be, and one is going to drop out. So what do you got as number 10?
I just couldn't, I've been supporting the Rams and keeping them in my top 10 this whole time. But this week, I'm sorry, I had to drop them out, especially after watching the Niners kick the shit out of them again for the 7th time in a row. Something's got to change. Like I mentioned, they're it's Cooper Rush or Cooper Kupp or nobody as far as their receiving core goes. I mean, he needs some help. I mean, he's targeted 15 times on Sunday. I mean, somebody else needs to step up and catch the ball besides Kupp or Higbee. And they need to get Van Jefferson back. Maybe he'll be the answer once he returns, but I don't know when he's coming back. He's already been out 4 weeks. So I had to drop the Rams out, and I moved in the Bengals. You already had them in your top 10, and I've seen enough out of them. It seems to be like Joe Burrow's so good that it doesn't matter how bad Zach Taylor is. They can still potentially win games just because of Broadway Joe.
That's for sure. All right, our bottom 3, I'm going to go quickly with my bottom 3. Houston, Carolina, Pittsburgh right now. Pittsburgh, You know what I think of their coach? I think he's one of the best coaches in football, but he's just got a mess down there, starting at quarterback, and their defense doesn't seem to be the defense that it usually is. So I'm putting Pittsburgh in there. Carolina, Matt Rule can't survive too much longer. I feel sorry for Baker Mayfield. I don't know what's going to go on. I don't know if he's going to be one of these casualties of as a number one that never pans out. And Houston is just Houston.
Yeah. Houston's got one of the worst rosters in the league. They have for a couple of years. I don't know. I don't know what happened to them. I mean, if we turn back the clock a couple of years ago, they're winning the division. They're rolling along. Remember, they were up 24-7 on the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and then like that game, that comeback by the Chiefs, like just started the downslide of the Texans, and they've never come out of it. So I've got the Texans at the bottom, or as number one, the worst team in the league, and I've got the Commanders as number two, because as I told you, Ron Rivera, Steve Spurrier, Jim Zorn, Mike Shanahan, it doesn't matter who the coach is. The Washington football franchise, or whatever the hell their name is, they suck. And it starts at the top with Daniel piece of crap Snyder. They're just never going to be good with that guy at the helm. So I got them as the second worst team, and then I had to put Carolina as the third. I like Baker too, but this team is just not good.
No, even the new unis didn't help the Commanders out. The name or the unis don't help change that. My players of the week last week, will do this quick. I had Mahomes number one, Geno Smith, who I never been a fan of, but I got to give him. He had a great game on Sunday, and I put Saquon as my number three guy.
Yeah, Saquon was unbelievable, and I had to include him too. But I had Josh Jacobs of the Raiders. He was starting in the preseason because Josh McDaniels was like, he's got to earn his position. They didn't give him the fifth-year option, a guy who's been pretty productive for them. And I think he's another guy that's bet on himself and really turned it around. So 28 carries, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns for Josh Jacobs. Had to give him some credit, finally getting the Raiders off the schneid. And then as I mentioned, I've also got to do a couple of guys, basically the Niners defense, but Dre Greenlaw, he had 15 tackles against the Rams. He seemed like he was everywhere. And then, as I mentioned, my boy Talanoa Hufanga with the big interception that sealed the game, and then Nick Bosa. So those three guys together really, earned my players of the week for the defense. They were lights out against the Rams.
All right, let's go for our picks. Last week, 3 for 3. I'm now 5-7 on the year. Dallas, the Giants, and the Raiders came through for me last week. So I'm going with the underdogs again here. I picked Arizona, getting 5.5. Are they in 5.5 on your paper too?
Let me see. Arizona is playing the Eagles. I got them at 5 on mine.
All right, we'll do 5 then. We'll agree on 5.
All right.
Dallas getting 3 or getting or given, or are they giving or getting? I can't wait.
Dallas
they're getting 5 from the Rams.
Yeah, 5.5. I got 5.5.
Okay, we'll give that 5.
Yep, I'll give you 5.5 there.
And then we got Atlanta getting 9.5.
Yep.
On my.
Yeah, I got 9.5 also.
All right, so those are my 3 picks. I'm going with the Falcons, the Cowboys, and the Cards.
Yes, I've got the Cowboys also. I've got the Falcons also. And then I have the Titans, who are favored by 1.5 over the Commanders.
All right, so we got Dallas, we're together. Atlanta, we're together. And the only difference is the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
Well, hopefully, if I, how much I like Vrabel, I hope for his sake that they get it together. Let's see, we got a good big show coming up on man coverage. What do we got going on Sunday?
Yes, Sunday we were going to have our boy, friend of the program, Steve Bellisari, former quarterback of the Buckeyes, is going to join us to break down the Buckeyes and Michigan State. We got a huge week of college football this week. We got this is week 6, if you can believe that. So he's going to be breaking down all things Big Ten, Michigan, Indiana's pretty big game. He's going to be breaking down Ohio State, Michigan State. And then also we're going to have Russell Smith, who is a big guy here locally here in Knoxville. He works for Fox Sports Radio here in Knoxville. Does the voluntary reaction show, the post-game show for the Vols. We're going to have him on to break down the LSU Tennessee game. And Steve's actually going to stay on for the whole show. So he's going to give us a little college football quarterback insight. And then we're also going to have, as I mentioned, Russell Smith from Fox Sports Knoxville be on the show too. So should be an awesome program with 2 big time guests.
Okay, before we break it out here, I just wanted to do a little college football myself here. Man, what are all these teams? I know you predicted Wisconsin. What are all these teams hoping to accomplish by firing all these head coaches right now? Are there enough candidates around to fill all these programs that are going to be open?
No, there's not. I think it's disgusting how, especially like in the Nebraska situation, if they would have waited 2 weeks, they would have saved $7.5 million. And instead of, it's not like they've gotten dramatically better since he left. So I didn't really understand firing him. Now, from what I've heard, there were some other factors besides the on the field stuff. Apparently, he was showing up late to practice. He was also skipping events with recruits and not showing up to certain events that they had scheduled where they had recruits at, and the head coach was supposed to be there and he wasn't showing up. So maybe there was more to it, but I don't give a shit. $7.5 million, 2 weeks, wait the 2 weeks. I mean, our country's having a little trouble right now, and you're going to set fire to $7.5 million. That makes no sense to me. Now, the Wisconsin one, I called it. I said it a couple weeks ago. I watched them lose to Washington State at home, and then I watched them get utterly dismantled by the Buckeyes for I think this was about the 4th time in a row that the Buckeyes have beat them by like 40 points or more. And then, the final dagger in the heart was Brett Bielema, their old coach, coming in with Illinois into the Camp Randall Stadium and kicking the shit out of them on national TV. That was the final straw. And Paul Chryst is out of there. But, he had a $20 million buyout and near almost $20 million. And they somehow convinced him to accept an $11 million lump sum. So Wisconsin came out ahead on that deal, but he gets paid out in February. So he's going to get the whole shebang.
I don't know how to get by an $11 million. You'll probably have to sell a car or something.
Yeah, I can probably handle that.
The only thing is, and I know we want to get to watching our game here, or the football game, but the only thing I say in these ADs, these alumni, whoever are putting the pressure on to make all these changes, I mean, did they really think Georgia Tech was going to be playing for the national championship this year? Did they really think that some of these guys that are getting fired, I mean, really, basically, there are 4 teams, 5 teams, 16, maybe 12 teams that really have legitimate rosters that can do something. The rest of them are all playing for 6 wins and getting bowl eligible, if that even really counts for anything anymore.
True that, but I will give them this. They fired Jeff Collins, and 5 days later they come out and have life for the first time all season and take down a ranked opponent in Pitt. So maybe in Georgia Tech's case, I can give them a little bit of credit because this guy, I mean, if you look, the best player on Alabama's team this year has been Jahmyr Gibbs. He played for Georgia Tech last year. The best defensive lineman on Ole Miss was on Georgia Tech last year. If he could have just, used that talent that he had, I think Georgia Tech might have been a better team. So he's the one firing that I kind of agree with. The rest of these, I think, could have waited till the end of the season.
it kind of made me sad, the Colorado situation. I mean,
Hey, I'm just still saying that these guys they weren't going to be playing for a
No.
national championship anyway. So it's kind of like, it's rearranging the deck chair in the Titanic used to be the joke. I mean,
yeah,
it is what it is. I mean, I would think that what Georgia Tech should do right now is take a real good look at that Coastal Carolina coach. I think he's about ready to make a move, and he is from that area. He's in the ACC geography. I think he'd be a perfect guy to go down there and maybe restore something to Georgia Tech.
yeah. They haven't been great since Paul Johnson. I mean, they haven't been good since Paul Johnson left. So,
Yeah.
They got to get somebody like that who wants to be there and can bring something back to that program. But I mean, I think we need to give some credit to Mr. Leopold there in Lawrence, Kansas. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? Going into Kansas, which has been an absolute disgrace to college football. I mean, it's been a wreck of a program for years.
Oh, yeah.
And he has gotten College Game Day to come in there. He has won 5 games in a row. James was the one that predicted that Leopold would turn that program around. Now, he did not predict that they'd be 5-0 and 2-0 in the Big 12. But they're getting it done, man. And this guy, he knows how to win, and he's winning at Kansas, which that's almost unheard of. And I don't know if you saw your boys from TCU, but they kicked the crap out of Oklahoma on Saturday. It was fun to watch.
Yeah. I think Lincoln Riley left right on time, huh?
Yeah.
All right, let's get going. We got people tune into Man Coverage. What's it, 1 o'clock on Sunday?
It's at 11 a.m.
11 a.m.
11 a.m. Eastern.
11 a.m. Eastern. And we'll be back next Thursday to talk about the world of football and where we think they are after week 5. Everybody have a great week, a great weekend. Welcome to October.
Yes, sir.